What's good, YouTube? It's your boy XY11, the best damn thing in Pokemon around, coming at you guys with something a little bit different today. Something I haven't really done in the past. And yes, I do realize it's been like 3 months since my last upload. I am sorry about that. I'm gonna try and be a little bit better about that from here on out. As in, I did say try. I'm not gonna guarantee anything. My life has been kind of hectic lately with work and whatnot. Anyway, that's not here or there right now. What we're doing today is we're going to go through the list of confirmed cards for Pokemon XY11 Steam Seige, aka XY11 Explosive Fighter Cruel Trader in Japan. And we're just going to go through the set list. I'm going to say my piece on what I think is going to be good, what I think is going to be not so good. And, well, yeah, we'll just go from there. I'm not going to give an exact time frame for this video, because the list is fairly long. Although there's not very much that I think is going to be very good. But we're already a minute and 15-20 seconds into this, so let's just get going. Starting off, we got the C-Dot line, or C-Dot basic Pokemon. Nuzleaf, it's got that middle child syndrome. And then you got this Shiftry here. And this is going to be one of the big things about XY11, is that it's the reintroduction of dual types. So Shiftry here is a stage 2, 140 grass and dark type Pokemon. It's got Devious Wind for 1 grass, does 40 damage, and until your opponent's next turn, all Pokemon tools and stadiums have no effect. Which is, it's okay. It's 40 damage for 1 energy that you can get out turn 1 via Forest of Giant Plants. Is not too bad. Its second attack isn't bad either. However, and this is the big thing, Dark decks right now, or at least Dark decks in general, honestly I feel this card isn't going to be that great. One, it's a stage 2, which means it's going to take time to get out unless you have that Forest of Giant Plants, as I mentioned, and it just doesn't do the damage that you need it to do. On top of all that, it's only got 140 hit points. It's not going to be living very long. Yes, Extra Sensory, which is a double colorless, can do up to 100 damage. Yes, a double colorless for 100 damage. While you've got things such as Lugia, which does 20 damage, or I should say Lugia EX, which does 20 damage for each energy attached to both Pokemon. That's a whole lot more damage. And it's a basic. So, yeah, it's just, it could be a lot better. But moving on, we've got Fungus, which has the ability Play Ball, which when you put it onto your bench, you search your discard pile for up to 3 Pokeballs. Now, these are just regular Pokeballs. These aren't Ultra Balls, these aren't Level Balls, these aren't Dive Balls, anything like that. Just regular, old school Pokeballs. Notice that you have to flip a coin to see if it works. So, in that alone, it's not going to be very good. Because of the fact that you have to be running pretty much max number of Pokeballs, which is 4. And you have to actually use said Pokeballs before this effect will even take place. And Amoonguss, its evolution, isn't much better. So, moving around along from that, we got Ponyta, Rapidash, basic kitchen counter top cards. Nothing special about them. Then we've got Litleo, which again, just a basic card. I do like the art on this one. That is pretty kind of cute. And then we've got Pyroar. Now, if you guys have been following the TCG at all, you know that the set rotation is Primal Clash on for Standard. So we're losing the best Pyroar possible at the moment. which is the one that stops basics from attacking it. This Pyroar, not that great of a replacement. It's got Nitro Charge for 1 fire and 1 colorless, does 60 damage, and you can search your deck for fire energy and attach it to this Pokemon. And then Devastate for 90, which is 2 fires and 1 colorless, for 90 damage. And before doing damage, you discard all tool cards. It's decent, but it's not that great. Because again, 3 energy for only 90 damage. You see where I'm going with this? It's okay, but it's not great. And then going on from there, you've got the Pyroar Break. Now, again, going back to the whole set rotation, we're losing Protection Cube, which is the one thing that would make Pyroar Break kind of decent. And even that's a stretch. But before I get into that, let me tell you what Pyroar Break does. For 2 fire and a colorless, it has Kaiser Tackle for 180 damage. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. But it does 50 to itself, and at only 160 hit points. After 3 Kaiser Tackles, or even 2 if your opponent's actually attacking you as well, you're going to be knocked out. You see where I'm going? Well, it's not that great. Anyway, moving on. We've got Volcanion. Now this, I think, feels going to be an amazing card for fire decks. Because it's basically, well, let me tell you what it does. For 1 fire, it has Power Heater. It does 20 damage, and you choose 2 of your bench Pokemon, attach a fire energy from your discard pile to each of them. So it basically makes up for the loss of Blacksmith. Except that you're attaching 1 fire energy to 2 Pokemon instead of 2 fire energies to 1 Pokemon. Plus the fact that it's actually doing damage. Now you're thinking, we're losing Blacksmith, we're losing Battle Compressor, we're losing all these good techs that fire decks have had in the past. What's going to get those fire energies into the grave or discard pile for you to use Power Heater? Well, one thing is we have this new Volcanion EX, which again, like the Shift Tree, is a dual type fire water, 180 hit points, and has the ability Steam Up. Once during your turn before your attack, you may discard 1 fire energy from your hand. If you do, during this turn, the attacks of your basic fire Pokemon do 30 more damage. So if you're doing that with an active Volcanion, with an active baby Volcanion, we'll just say that's the name of it now. That Power Heater is going to be doing 50 damage. And not to mention, Steam Up will stack. So you can have multiple Volcanion EXs on your bench, use Steam Up for each of them, then attack with Power Heater to get those energies back. For each one of those Steam Ups you used, that's an extra 30 damage on top of each other. And then Volcanion also has Volcanic Heat for 2 fires and 1 colorless. Does 130 damage, but during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. Now, I'm not 100% up on the rulings on this, but to me that sounds like that single-handed card. Now, if that's wrong, someone can correct me in the comments, but my thoughts on it is that you attack with that, float Stone out to a different Pokemon, say another Volcanion EX, and attack with that one's Volcanic Heat or whatever attack. That's how I'm seeing it. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. Moving on. Honestly, I think Volcanion EX and Baby Volcanion are going to be amazing in the new meta that we're getting. Moving on, we've got Shellos and Gastrodon. Which, honestly, I feel like they're going to have the same problem as Fungus and Amoonguss. They're just not going to do anything. Just not that great. Then we've got Oshawott, Dewott, and Samurai. Your basic 5th gen starter water starters. Yeah, well, okay. Oshawott, basic form, whatever. Dewott, middle child. Samurai, 140 hit points for a water type. Water and colorless, perfect blade, 40 damage if your opponent's active Pokemon will be under 60 HP after using this attack. Your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked down inside. That's a nice little gimmick, I'll say. We'll say it's a gimmick. I don't think it's going to be competitive. I honestly don't. And its other attack, Long Spear, which is 2 waters and a colorless for 90 damage, and does 30 damage to your opponent, one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's basically a water type Darkrai EX from Next Destinies. Which, yes, that card was amazing back then, but you have to remember that was a basic. This is a stage 2. It's going to be a lot slower to get out. And it's just water types don't have. It's not a lot of times where water type will count for weakness on anything in the meta. And then, so moving on from that, we have another thing that I think is going to be decent at least, if not amazing, in coming months. We have Clauncher, which no one cares about that part. And then we have Clawitzer and Clawitzer Break. Now what Clawitzer does is that it has the ability Mega Booster. Once during your turn before you attack, you may choose a special energy card from your hand and attach it to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. So you could do Mega Rayquaza, like the Dragon type with double Dragon energies. Mega Charizard, again, double Dragon energies. But that's more for the Mega Charizard will be more for expanded, because again, Flash Fire is getting rotated out. And then it has Crabhammer for 1 water and 2 colorless, and it's 60 damage. The Clawitzer itself, by itself, the main thing is the Mega Booster. But then you've got Clawitzer Break, which bumps its HP up to 130, and for 1 colorless, you get the attack Lock On, which during your opponent's next turn, first of all, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So that means they have to waste either an escape rope, a switch, or something like that to get that Pokemon out of there if they want to. And then the second part of Lock On's effect is that during your next turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage to the defending Pokemon. And it could be any Pokemon on their side and any Pokemon on your side. It's not just the Clawitzer. So you could use Lock On, and then your next turn switch to a different one, and have them do 120 more damage on top of whatever attack they're going to use. That is powerful. Then we have Joltik and Galvantula. Again, nothing that's going to be too great. I think in competitive decks, it might be okay-ish for maybe the draft. That's the only place I'm seeing it. I'm saying that right now. The draft from the pre-release, and maybe like fun battles with your friends. I'm not seeing it anywhere else. Then we have Drifloon. It's nothing special. And Drifblim, which it's nothing great. For double colorless, you have Ominous Telepathy, 30 damage. Your opponent's active is now confused. And then you have Burst and Curse for 2 psychics. Discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon. Place H damage on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. There's not a lot of ways to recycle that energy, except for maybe Super Rod. But then you have to fish it back out of your deck, or reattach it. There's no way to quickly re-energize Drifblim to continuously use that attack. So honestly, I don't think it's going to be that great. And next we have something that could be potential. It has this next lineup has potential, I'll say. And that's that we have Litwick, Lampin, and Chandelure. Litwick is decent. And then for one colorless, you can search your deck for any 2 cards and discard them. So it's like a mini battle compressor but it's an attack. Which is fine because, again, battle compressor is getting rotated out come September 1st. So that does help a little bit. Then you have Lampent, which, again, honestly is a kind of a middle child syndrome again. But it does have this attack called an Infinity Mirror, where each player either draws or discards cards until he or she has 4 cards in his or her hand. It's interesting. It's not bad, but it's not good. But here's the good part about this lineup. Chandelure. It has the ability Spooky Choice. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one of them and put it into your hand, discard the other card. It's a continuous, it's a acrobat that you have every single turn. No matter what, as long as this card's on the field. That's not bad. And then you have his attack for 1 psychic and 1 colorless, Deadstock. 10 damage, 10 plus damage. This attack does 10 more damage for each supporter card in your discard pile. Now, honestly, the attack's not that great. The ability is what makes it good. The attack is okay, but it's not going to be doing a ton of damage. And then next we have Nose Pass and Purple Pass, which, honestly, is not going to be that great. Next we have, don't want to go that far, Croagunk and Toxicroak, which bring about an interesting mechanic, I'll say. In that Croagunk gets a better poison. For 1 colorless, if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, put 3 more damage counters on that Pokemon between turns. This effect stacks. That is actually very interesting, I'll say that. You could combine this with Ariados, so that Ariados poisons it. Croagunk does the better poison. That first one, they take 4. You do better poison again the next turn. Then they start taking 7 between turns. So on and so on and so on. And then you've got Croagunk's evolution, Toxicroak, that has the ability Poisonous Enzyme. If your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, this Pokemon can't be affected by damage from attacks. So you see where this ties into the Ariados. Ariados poisons, Toxicroak is safe. On top of that, Toxicroak has a means to poison the defending Pokemon in Poison Jab. 50 damage, flip a coin if your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. Again, I can see this having potential within like an Ariados deck. I don't know how else you would run it yet, but it has potential. And then we get to one of my personal favorites in this set. Not because it's one of my favorite Pokemon, but because it's a very interesting Pokemon to me. Or interesting set of cards. We have Steelix EX, which is a metal type, 180 hit points, so right on the average. 1 metal, 3 colorless, Wild Edge, 80 damage. You may do 50 more damage, so let's see, that's 130. If you do, this Pokemon does 20 damage to itself. So that's okay-ish. And then it has Iron Tail for a metal and 4 colorless. So yes, it is very has very expensive attacks, but it does 100x damage. Flip a coin until you get tails. This attack does 100 damage times the number of heads. That is kind of crazy, and it only gets more crazy from there when you count in its mega, which is, and this is the one that I think is the most interesting out of the two. 240 hit points, steel fighting. So yes, it does get access to things such as strong energy, Regirock, anything that will power up fighting types, Mega Steelix can take advantage of. And its attack is 1 metal, 4 colorless, so you can use strong energy for those colorless because of the fact that it is a fighting type. 160 damage for Canyon Axe. Does 10 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. You attach a strong energy to this thing. That's 180. That's that's one-shotting most EXs. The only thing I can think of that is not one-shotting off the top of my head is Zygarde, Wailord, and any Megas. This thing is a powerhouse if you can get it powered up fast enough. This thing, honestly, I think is going to be... I don't think it's going to be top tier competitive, but I think it's going to be competitive. But anyway, moving on from that, we've got more fossils. As if Face Glide didn't give us enough of them, we have Shieldon and Bastiodon. Honestly, they're not going to be good for the simple fact that they are fossils. Fossils just don't do good competitively. And I hate saying that, but it's true. Then we have Clink, Clang, and Klinklang. And this is actually my first time reading these ones, so let me go over these ones one at a time. Clink, basic Pokemon, Steel type, 50 HP, disorderly rotation, 10 damage, types 4 coins, this attack. Okay, so can do as much as 40 damage for 1 energy. It's decent-ish. Clang, again, middle child syndrome. Klinklang, Steel type, 140 damage. Ability, Heavy Bumper. Reduce all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks by 10 each for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon. Okay, so it has a guard for against heavier Pokemon. The heavier you're facing, the more it shields itself. If they have a lot of heavy Pokemon, then yeah, I can see that being good. Gear Spinner, 70 damage during... So 3 energy for 70 and then 140 the turn after. Honestly, I don't think this is going to be good. So moving on from there, we have Cobalion, or however you guys want to pronounce it. Steel type, 120 HP. For 1 metal energy, Fast Guard during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by the attacks of your opponent's basic Pokemon. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Fast Guard. So for 1 turn, you get Shield. Okay. And then for 2 metal energies, Revenge Burst, 30 plus damage. This attack does... Okay, so it's just a metal version of the Virizion we got a few sets ago. Blah. Next up is something I think is going to be a very interesting tech card in some decks. Clucky. Fairy type, 70 HP. And the reason I think it's going to be somewhat used is this ability, Wonderlock. Once during your turn, before your attack, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and attach this Pokemon to one of your Pokemon as a Pokemon Tool card. As long as this Pokemon is attached to a Pokemon, prevent all damage done to that Pokemon by the attacks of your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon. At the end of your opponent's next turn, discard this card. So pretty much it's an anti-mega card. Blah. But it's only for 1 turn. but it might see more play if Megas become more competitive. But until that time, it's not going to be it's going to be a tech card. Pure and simple. People will tech it if they're facing a lot of Megas. If they're not going to use it. Pure and simple. Next up, we have the Xerneas reprint from XY. It's got Geomancy and Rainbow Spear. Everyone should know what this card does by now. But in this set, it gains Xerneas Break. 150 HP. For 2 fairies, it gets Life Stream, 20x damage. This attack does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. It is basically a 2 energy Psystorm for fairies. Yes, that's going to be powerful, especially in Expanded when you combine it with Mega Gardevoir. The Mega Gardevoir we have currently, well, we have Mega Gardevoir with, yeah. Next we have Druddigon, which for a 2 colorless has Haughty Fang, 20 plus damage. If the opponent has any break Pokemon in play, this attack does 60 more damage. That's gonna be an okay attack, I think. Breaks are seeing more popularity lately, because you've got Greninja Break, you've got the new Xerneas Break, you've got Trevenant Break. There's a lot of good breaks out there, and there's going to be more to come. I'm pretty sure of it. Then for 1 fire, 1 water, and 1 colorless, it has Giga Claw, 100 damage. Flip 2 coins. If both of them are tails, this attack fails. So more often than not, you're going to do that 100 damage. The problem is that he is a dragon type, and he only has 120 HP. I don't see it being that great. Yeah, that first attack is okay, but it's still only 80 damage. That's not doing a lot. So we're just going to move on from that. Because next up we have Apom and Ambipom. Again, I don't think they're going to be good. At least for competitively. But you never know. Something could surprise us with this. Next up is something very interesting for me. To me anyway. We have colorless Fletchling, colorless Fletchinder, and a colorless Talonflame. Now, the Fletching and the Fletchinder are interesting, are basic, nothing real special about them. The Talonflame is what's interesting here, because like I said, it is colorless, has 130 HP, and has the ability Gale Wings. At the start of the game, you may put this Pokemon face down as your active Pokemon. You're putting a Stage 2 as your starting Pokemon. But only for the active. You can only start with this. Can't put it on the bench starting off, but you can put it as your active. Sorry. And then we've got Aero Blitz. 40 damage. Search your deck for any 2 cards and put them to your hand. This card is going to be amazing. The only downside is the fact that you have to actually start with it in your hand. And if you don't, you're kind of screwed. Now, we are getting another card that goes along with this. I don't know if it's actually going to be in XY11 or if it's going to be a promo. But we are getting a Talonflame Break. I might pull up the info on that and do that and cover that in a separate video, so you guys can know what that does. But I do know that it has more HP and it's actually a fire type. So, but once I get the rest of the information, I'll get that out to you guys. Up next, we have some items, or trainers, I should say. We have Armor Fossil Shieldon, again, fossils. We have Special Charge. This is going to be a good one. Shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. So you're reusing double colorless, you're reusing double dragon, you're reusing strong energy, splash energy, burning energy if it somehow gets into the grave. All those special energy cards, you can now reuse them with this. Next we have Greedy Die. If you take this card as your face down prize card, before putting it into your hand, flip a coin. If heads, take another prize card. It's not that great. One, it has to actually be prized, and you have no control over what gets prized. If it actually ends up being in your deck and you draw into it, it's worthless. You can't do anything with it, so maybe discard fodder. Two, it actually has to be face down. Now, I know a lot of decks like to run the trainer card town map, so they can pick and choose what they pick as their prizes. So if this does get prized, and you use that town map, you can't use it then, because it has to be face down. So, long story short, not a good card. Next up, we have the Steal It Spirit Link. Obviously. Next up, Ninja Boy. This card is amazing. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Any cards attached to that Pokemon, damage count, special, blah blah blah, are now on the new Pokemon. Shuffle the first basic Pokemon back into your deck. You have no idea how many times, how annoying it is to have to. If you have ever had to start with a Shaman EX as your active, you can see the potential in this card. This card will let you switch out that Shaman for whatever basic Pokemon you actually want to start with, and then save that Shaman for later to actually use its ability. Or Hoopa. Same case. Anything that you don't want to start with as a basic, you can switch out for something that you do want to start with a basic. Yes, please. And then last, for Explosive Fighter, we have Pokemon Ranger. Remove all effects of attacks on both players and all Pokemon. This is pretty much your anti Seismitoad EX, your anti anything that would lock down you down. Anti-Jolteon, anti-Glaceon, anti-Seismitoad. All those things, bye. Now moving on to the second half of XY11, the Cruel Trader part. We start off with a Tangela and a Tangrowth, which honestly, they're not that great. I'm just going to skip over them. Tangrowth needs 4 energies for its second attack. And things like Lugia, Mewtwo, well, Mega Mewtwo I should say, are running around right now. Yeah, you get the idea. Next up we have a lineup that we haven't seen in, I don't think since the beginning of Black and White. I think that's the last time I've seen it running around. It's the Hop-Up, Skip-Up, Skip-Plup, and Jump-Plup line. So Hop-Up gets Splash, which actually does damage. Skip-Loom, Splash again, doing damage. And then Jump-Plup. And I just think this line will be semi-competitive. I don't think it's going to do a lot, but the fact that you can get it all up into one turn with Force of Giant Plants, and that both of Jump-Plup's attacks only need 1 energy, that is something to look at, even though it only has 90 HP. For 1 colorless, Cotton Carry, switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you're pretty much getting a free Gust of Wind. If you remember back in the old days when the game first came out. And then for 1 Grass Energy, Solar Step, 20x damage. This attack does 20 damage times the number of your remaining prize cards. So if you're losing, this is going to do a lot. So, like, first few turns of the game, this attack will do a lot. Towards the end, it's not going to do much. Next up, we have one of the things I'm mostly... It's one of the cards I'm looking forward to the most out of the whole set. We have Yanma, Yanmega, and Yanmega Break. Starting off with Yanma... Sorry. I was just out on a Pokemon adventure before recording this. We have Yanma. For one colorless, explore, look at your opponent's hand. Okay, you get info. That's not bad. For 3 colorless, speedy fight, 40 damage, it's okay. But the true power from this line comes from the Yanmega in the fact that it gets Sonic Vision as its ability. 110 HP. If your hand has 4 cards in it, this Pokemon's attack costs no energy to use. So I can see this being used with like Octillery, with Abyssal Hand, because it's a lot easier to go down to 4 cards from 5 than it is going down to 4 cards from like 6 or 7 with Sycamore or Shaman. And then it has the attack Assault Boom, but 3 colorless energy, 50 plus damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any Pokemon tools on it, this attack does 70 more damage. So that's what? 120 damage that you could potentially use for 0 energy. Top that off, it also gets Yanmega Break, 140 HP. And the attack Penetrate for 3 colorless, 100 damage. It's not affected by weakness, not affected by resistance, and not affected by any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it goes through Glaceon, it goes through Regice, it goes through Jolteon, it goes through anything that might have an effect that would stop it. That is pretty good. Next up we have Larvesta and Volcarona. Again, it's nothing that's going to be too great. Yes, the Volcarona is a dual type with Grass and Fire, and has a 3 energy colorless attack that does 120. But the thing is, that attack makes you discard all your energy attached to that Pokemon. Yes, it's a Fire type, it can make use of Blacksmith, but that's only in Expanded. Moving on, we have something that could potentially be interesting. We have Chimchar, Monferno, and Infernape. The Chimchar and Monferno, they're okay. They're just means to get to the end, which is Infernape, Fire type, 130 HP. For 2 fires, just Flare Drive, 120 damage. Discard all fire energy attacks attached to this Pokemon. That's a lot of damage for 2 energies. And yes, if Blacksmith was still around, this would see a lot. I can guarantee this would see a lot of play, because of the fact that you could just recycle the energy, recycle, attack, recycle, attack, recycle. It does a lot. And that's not even counting its second attack for 2 fire energies, Flare Up, 200 damage. But here's the kicker. You can only use this attack if your discard pile has 10 or more fire energies cards in it. Choose 10 fire energy cards in your discard pile, show them to your opponent, shuffle them back into the deck. All that for 1 retreat cost as well. That's not bad. I don't think it's going to see much play, but it's definitely an interesting card to build around. Next up we have Mantine, which has Healing Wave. Discard as many cards from your hand as you like. Heal 10 damage from this Pokemon. It's mediocre. I'll say that. Because his other attack, 3 water, Pulling Tide, 90 damage, does 10 less damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. And he only has 100 hit points to begin with. Next up, we have Bergmite and Avalugg, which, again, mediocre cards. Now, for something I think is going to be very interesting, we have Mareep, Flaaffy, and Ampharos. All of them electro types. Mareep and Flaaffy, again, like Infernape, means to an end to get to Ampharos. This Ampharos is amazing. First off, its ability, Shocking Light. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may choose one of your opponent's Pokemon EX and put 3 damage counters on it. That's a free 30 damage every turn. On top of that, it has Gigabolt for 2 lightning and 1 colorless, 80 plus damage. Flip a coin. If heads, the attack does 40 more damage, so 120. If tails, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So that attack is win-win no matter what. If heads, you're doing 120. 150 is if it's an EX, because of the Shocking Light. If tails is doing 80 and is paralyzed, or 110 if it's an EX, because of Shocking Light. Yes, please. Is that something I'm going to try and build around at some point? But anyway, moving on. We've got Nidoran, Nidorino, and Nidoking. Nidoran, Nidorino, once again, means to an end to get to the top. Nidoking, King's Palace. Each of your Nidoqueen's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, even though there's not a Nidoqueen in this set, there is a Nidoqueen, I think it's back in Ancient Origins, that has the double trait. Has the ancient trait double, and that's what this card is supposed to be used with. On top of that ability, it has the attack Power Lariat for 2 psychic and 1 colorless, 60 plus damage. This attack does 30 more damage for each evolved Pokemon on your bench. So as long as you have Nidorino, or another Nidoking, or a Nidoqueen, the more evolved Pokemon you have on your bench, the more this attack will do. Moving on, we have Hoopa. For 1 colorless, it's the Psychic type with 130 HP. For 1 colorless, Dimensional Punch, choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage to each of them. Then for 3 Psychic, it has Sinkhole 130 damage. This Pokemon can't use Sinkhole during your next turn. It's not that great. Moving on, we have Mankey and Primeape, which could actually be kind of interesting. The Mankey is okay. The Primeape, Fighting type, 90 HP. For 1 colorless, has Swagger, 20 damage. Flip a coin. If heads, discard energy attached to the opponent's active Pokemon. So it has energy disruption, but then it also damages. Then for 2 fighting, focus throw, 30 plus damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon's remaining HP is greater than this Pokemon's remaining HP, this attack does 60 more damage. So 90 damage, not counting things like strong energy, fighting Fairy Belt wouldn't work because it's involved. But like Regirock, anything that buffs up fighting types. And he only has 90 HP to begin with. So most likely, things are going to have more HP than him. It has potential. I don't think it's going to be competitive, but it has potential. Next up, we have Anorith and Amaldo. Once again, fossil types. And again, fossil types aren't going to do much. Next up, Sneasel, Reveiw. Sneasel, Weavile, Dark type, 90 HP, ability Ripoff. As often as you like before your turn, before you attack, you may take a Pokemon tool attached to one of your Pokemon and return it to your hand. we already kind of have that in Genesect DX from Breakpoint. And then for a dark and colorless cleave, 40 damage. Yeah, that ability is nice, but I don't think it'd be gonna do much. Up next, we have Spiritomb, Dark type, 70 HP. Again, it's not that great. The best thing it can do is it can move damage counters around. So you could possibly move them around to get a knockout. It by itself though isn't going to be doing much damage because the other attack, Nightmare, only does 10 damage and puts them to sleep. Up next we have Pawn Yard and Bishop, and as much as it pains me to say this, it's not going to be that great. I love Bishop to pieces. And even though it does have that dual typing Dark and Steel, it just doesn't have the damage output. And I hate saying that because I love this Pokemon. I'm glad to see it's getting another print. And it's coming back. And it's even shiny. That is a shiny Bishop. But it just isn't going to do much. Moving on, we have the reprint Yveltal from XY. Has the Oblivion Wing and the Darkness Blade. And then it gains something else. It gains Yveltal Break. This card, I like. For 3 Dark Energies, first off, it's a Dark type, 150 HP. For 3 Dark Energies, Night of Disaster, 120 damage. And this attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon that already has damage counters on it. That is powerful. That could potentially get multiple KOs in one turn. Up next, we have Magearna EX, Steel type, 160 HP. I honestly think this is going to be a good card because of the fact of A, it has the ability Mystic Heart, prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has metal energy attached to it. And then for 1 metal and 2 colorless, Soul Blaster, 120 damage. During your next turn, this Pokemon's Soul Blaster attack does 60 damage. So it does drop in damage. The ability is what's going to make it good. Okay, sorry about that cut there. Had to answer the phone there. Anyway, moving on, we have Meryl and Azumarill. Again, not that great. Even though it is a shiny Azumarill, and it does have the dual typing. Most of the dual typings in this set are going to be shinies. Well, shiny. So, yeah. Again, not that great. Next up, we have the Cruel Trader herself, Gardevoir EX and Mega Gardevoir EX. Starting off with the Gardevoir EX, Fairy type, 170 HP. For a fairy and a colorless energy, Link Blast, 30 plus damage. This attack does 70 more damage if this Pokemon has the same number of energy attached to it as your opponent's active Pokemon. So, and then for 2 fairies and 1 colorless, Blade of Light, 120 damage. Discard energy attached to this Pokemon. It's okay, it's not the best. Where it truly shines is the new Mega, which is Fairy, Psychic, Dual type, 210 HP. For a Fairy and a colorless, 110 damage, which is amazing for 2 energy. And you can discard as many of your bench Pokemon as you would like. This attack does 10 more damage for each bench Pokemon discarded in this way. Honestly, the discard fact of it, I don't think it's going to be used very much. Yes, you can discard your used up Shaymins or your used up Hoopas. Or if you're playing expanded, you can do the Execute. I can't think of what the ability is, but you know which one I'm talking about. So you do have options to make the discard work. And also in expanded, you have Dimension Valley, which makes this a 110 base attack for 1 energy, which is amazing. And then moving on, we have something that looks, which on paper you would think would look good. In actuality, though, I don't think it's going to be that great. We have Dano, Zweilous, Hydreigon, and Hydreigon Break. Starting off with the Dano, it's Dano and Zweilous, once again, means to an end to get to the top. Hydreigon, Dragon type, 150 HP, stage 2, obviously. For 2 colorless, it has Ruthless Bite, 40 damage during your opponent's next turn. The attacks of the defending Pokemon do 40 less damage. So that's decent. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And then for a Psychic, a Dark, and a colorless, 50x damage. You may discard as many Dark Energy attached to your Pokemon as you like. This attack does 50 damage times the number of Dark Energy discarded in this way. It's not that great, really. It's too slow to power up, and then you're just discarding all that energy away. Hydreigon Break, 190 HP. And of course it has the break rule where it keeps all the other stuff from its previous evolution. For a Psychic, 2 Dark, and a colorless, Calamity Blast, 150 damage. Choose 3 energy attached to this Pokemon and discard them. Choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This attack does 50 damage to each of them. So yes, you're doing a total of 250 damage. But it takes 4 energy, and you're discarding 3 of them to use the attack. It's not that great. It's not going to be used. Next we have Meowth and Persian. Again, basic play with your friends cards. Rufflet, Braviary, again, basic play with your friends cards. And then we have Hawlucha, a colorless Hawlucha with 80 HP, the ability Sudden Cyclone. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to your bench, you may use your ability. Your opponent switches his or her active Pokemon with one of his or her bench Pokemon. So again, when you play it, it's a gust of wind. But they choose who they send in. And then for 2 colorless, Acrobatics, 20 plus damage, flip 2 coins. This attack does 20 damage, does 20 more damage for each heads. So again, it's okay. Next, we have the trainers. We have the Colossal Anorith. We have Special Charge and Greedy Diane. I've already covered those. Gardevoir Spirit Link again. And then Ninja Boy and Pokemon Ranger. Again, I've already covered those. We also are getting one of the promos that Japan has gotten recently called Captivating Pokepluff up. I don't have the info for that pulled up at the moment. So when I find that, along with the Talonflame Break, like I mentioned earlier, I'll go over those. But other than that, this has been the set review for XY11 Steam Seige. If you guys have any comments, feel free to leave them in the description below. And let me know what you guys think is going to be competitive, what your favorite card from the set is, and anything else you want to let me know. Until next time, guys, this has been XY11 Steam Seige signing out.